True love is devoid of possessiveness and need. It flows like a serene river.
Mental obsession reveals more about our insecurities and deficiencies than about genuine love.
Contemplation helps us discern between genuine connections and idealizations.
We are like a child who believes that their joy depends solely on a new toy.
Hello, I'm Ruby and Oliver, and today I have the honor of welcoming two of the greatest spiritual masters of all time. With me are Lao-Tzu, the great Chinese sage and founder of Taoism, and Ramana Maharshi, the enlightened Indian master of Advaita Vedanta. Today we will explore a fascinating topic. Why do certain people seem to constantly occupy our thoughts? Our masters will reveal 10 ancestral lessons that explain why someone is always on our mind. This is a question that deeply touches the human experience. You will discover whether this mental fixation is true love or merely obsession, how to transform obsessive thoughts into personal growth, and the role of our modern culture in this phenomenon. We will explore the difference between genuine connection and projection, dive into the power of synchronicity, and understand how self-knowledge can be the key to healthier relationships. So, let's begin with a profound question that touches the hearts of many. Lao-Tzu, is mental obsession for someone a sign of true love or a reflection of our own insecurities and deficiencies?
Rubian, this is an important reflection. Mental obsession for someone often reveals more about ourselves than about the object of our affection. When we allow ourselves to be carried away by a fixation, it is possible that we are projecting our insecurities, fears, and personal deficiencies onto that person. It's like water shaping rock. If the water is not pure, its impurities can contaminate the shape it takes. True love is devoid of possessiveness and need. It flows like a serene river, which not only embraces but also respects the freedom of the other. When we genuinely love, we celebrate the essence of the beloved without the pressure of becoming the source of our happiness or security. Thus, true connection occurs in a space of mutual support, where we recognize that fulfillment does not come from the other, but from being complete beings in ourselves. This understanding reflects the teaching of the Tao, which invites us to a natural harmony. The pursuit of inner balance is essential for cultivating genuine relationships. Therefore, those who find themselves trapped in obsession should reflect: are they loving or merely clinging to what they believe fills their internal gaps?
What a profound analogy this is of water and rock, Lao-Tzu. Maharshi, I would love to hear your perspective on this same question. Can we confuse obsession with true love?
Look, Rubian, mental obsession for someone should be seen as a light illuminating the shadows of our being. Often, this intensity of thought reveals more about our insecurities and personal deficiencies than about genuine love. It's as if we are projecting a movie of our expectations and fears onto another person, placing the responsibility for our own happiness on them. This form of attachment can resemble carrying a weight that is not an act of authentic love. Think of a mirror that reflects not only the image of the beloved but also the parts of ourselves that we feel are incomplete. Thus, obsession can be a desperate search for validation, an attempt to fill emotional voids that will never be satisfied by another. True love, on the other hand, is free, expansive, and does not require possession or constant vigilance over the object of affection. When we manage to detach ourselves from the limitations of the ego and seek our true essence, love emerges as a deep and sincere bond, not based on deficiencies or insecurities, but on mutual understanding and respect.
It's impressive how both views converge on a crucial point. True love liberates, while obsession traps. Let's move on to our next question. But before we continue, let me give you an amazing tip. Did you know that it's very easy to get ahead of 99% of people, succeeding in everything you want for your life? I'll leave a link below in the first comment to a book that changed my perspective on various aspects of my mind, and that has been helping thousands of people find clarity and confidence to achieve their goals and dreams. Don't miss it. I'm sure you'll love it. Now let's explore another interesting dimension of the human mind. Lao-Tzu, when someone insists on occupying our thoughts, is this an invitation to self-examination or a distraction that prevents us from fully living in the present?
You know, Rubian, this is a question that deserves careful analysis. The insistence of someone in our thoughts can be a valuable portal to self-knowledge, inviting us to examine our relationships and deeper emotions. Like a mirror of water reflecting our image, these thoughts can reveal important aspects about ourselves. However, there is a delicate threshold. When we allow ourselves to be dominated by these thoughts, it's as if we are losing connection with the present moment. Imagine being in the midst of a stunning landscape, but being so absorbed in thoughts about another person that you completely miss the experience of the beauty around you. Wisdom lies in finding balance, using these reflections as a tool for growth without becoming prisoners of them. Thus, we can honor both self-examination and our presence in the now.
A very balanced perspective, Lao-Tzu. And you, Maharshi, how do you see this duality between self-examination and distraction when someone persistently occupies our thoughts?
Rubian, when someone insists on inhabiting our thoughts, this can be a precious opportunity for self-examination, as long as it leads us to the fundamental question, who am I really? It's like a portal inviting us to dive deeper into our true nature. However, we need to be careful not to get lost in this mental labyrinth. An uncontrolled mind can easily turn this inquiry into an endless cycle of rumination, distancing us from the direct experience of being in the present moment. The secret lies in discernment, using these thoughts as springboards for self-knowledge, rather than allowing them to become chains that bind us. Through meditation and internal contemplation, we can develop the ability to observe these thoughts without fully identifying with them, keeping ourselves anchored in our essential state of being.
How fascinating that both perspectives show us that the same thought can be both a bridge to self-knowledge and a barrier to the present. The key seems to lie in how we choose to relate to them. An intriguing question now presents itself. Lao-Tzu, is it possible to free oneself from obsessive thought patterns without a deep understanding of how our own mind works?
Rubian, this liberation is like the journey of a river flowing freely, shaping its natural course. Without a deep understanding of oneself, it would be like a fisherman casting his net into murky waters, difficult to discern what truly inhabits the depths. The process of liberation requires genuine introspection, where the mind becomes an ally, not an adversary. It's like observing the clouds in the sky. By understanding their transient nature, you do not cling to the storm they bring. Obsessive patterns often arise from fear and attachment, and it is this attentive gaze inward that helps dissolve these binds. Contemplation cultivates an inner stillness that allows us to perceive thoughts without identifying with them. Like the leaves that fall in autumn, we learn to recognize the natural cycle and let go of what no longer serves us. Therefore, while superficial liberation may be possible, true and lasting freedom arises from deep self-knowledge.
What a beautiful analogy this is of autumn leaves, Lao-Tzu. And you, Maharshi, how do you see this issue of liberation from obsessive patterns without deep self-knowledge?
Look, Rubian, trying to free oneself from obsessive patterns without deeply understanding the mind is like navigating a stormy sea without knowing its currents. The mind can be a powerful instrument, but when uncontrolled, it becomes an obstacle to our freedom. Imagine someone trying to focus on something positive but constantly being dragged by compulsive thoughts. It's like being trapped in a maze without a map. Without understanding the mechanisms that generate and maintain these thoughts, we end up entangled even more in our own illusions. Self-inquiry, or atmavikara, is fundamental in this process. By turning inward and questioning, who am I, we establish an internal dialogue that reveals these imprisoning patterns. It is not merely an intellectual process, but a deep dive into our essence. True liberation does not lie in ignoring obsessive thoughts, but in recognizing their transient nature and understanding that we are much more than them. It is through this full understanding that we find the tools to transcend these limitations.
Fascinating how both masters show us that true liberation requires more than superficial solutions. It demands a deep dive into ourselves. We have arrived at a delicate question that touches the hearts of many relationships. How can we differentiate between a meaningful connection and projecting an unattainable ideal onto another person?
Rubian, this difference is deep and subtle. A meaningful connection is like two trees growing together in a grove. Each maintains its unique shape, but they intertwine harmoniously, creating a space of mutual support. When we project an unattainable ideal, it's like trying to turn a rock into a sculpture that exists only in our imagination, completely ignoring its essential nature. In this process, we end up suffocating the other with unrealistic expectations, filling our own gaps instead of truly seeing who is in front of us. Tao teaches us that true wisdom lies in letting go of these idealizations. When we can see beyond our own desires, we open space for an authentic relationship where both can grow and shine naturally.
What a beautiful analogy of the intertwined trees, Lao-Tzu. And you, Maharshi, how can we identify when we are projecting ideals instead of building true connections?
Rubian, this is a crucial point in understanding human relationships. A meaningful connection is like a crystal clear mirror that reflects both light and shadows. We accept the person in their entirety, with their virtues and imperfections. Projection, on the other hand, is like trying to see through a fogged lens. We distort reality to fit our expectations, denying the natural beauty of the other's imperfection and authenticity. Self-inquiry helps us realize when we are placing unrealistic expectations. If we can see the person alive, vibrant, with their flaws and achievements, we are likely cultivating a genuine connection. But if our vision is of a perfect and immaculate picture, we need to question whether we are merely projecting our own unachievable dreams.
Remarkable how both perspectives alert us to the importance of seeing the other in their true essence, without the distortions of our own expectations. Let's move on to our next question. We have arrived at a fascinating topic that has intrigued humanity for millennia. Lao-Tzu, when we talk about synchronicity, are we really facing signs from the universe, or is it just our mind creating meanings in random events?
Rubian, this is a question that invites us to a deep reflection on how we interpret life's events. Synchronicity is like a delicate web that connects different moments of our existence, creating patterns that seem to have a greater purpose. Think of the universe as a grand symphony, where each note has its precise moment. When we perceive a sequence of events that connect meaningfully, it's as if we are capturing a specific melody within this larger composition. However, we need to have discernment. The human mind has a natural tendency to seek patterns, even where none exist. Taoism teaches us to find balance, neither completely ignoring these signs nor becoming obsessive about interpreting them. True wisdom lies in keeping our hearts open to perceive these connections, but without rigidly clinging to a single interpretation. It's like flowing with life, allowing it to guide us, but without losing our capacity for discernment.
What a beautiful analogy of the universal symphony, Lao-Tzu. And you, Maharshi, how do you see this dance between coincidence and meaning in synchronic events?
Look, Rubian, when we observe synchronicity, we are facing a portal that connects our consciousness with the vastness of the universe. It's a phenomenon that transcends mere coincidence, but it should not simply be labeled as a divine sign. Imagine a deep lake. On the surface, we see only reflections, but in the depths, there exists a whole interconnected reality. Similarly, synchronic events may be manifestations of a deeper web of consciousness that permeates all existence. Through spiritual practice and self-knowledge, we begin to realize that each event, whether seemingly significant or not, is part of a larger pattern. Synchronicity can be both an invitation to expand our consciousness and a reflection of our own ability to create meaning. The secret lies in discernment, observing these events with a clear mind and an open heart, recognizing that reality is much richer and more complex than our linear interpretation might suggest.
Extraordinary how both perspectives show us that synchronicity can be a bridge between chance and meaning, inviting us to a deeper understanding of the reality that surrounds us. A transformative question arises now. Lao-Tzu, how can we use reflection, analysis, and action to transform a mental obsession into an opportunity for personal growth?
Rubian, this transformation is a profound process that reflects Taoist teachings in practice. Imagine murky water that, when left to settle, naturally becomes clear. This is how reflection acts in our minds. By looking inward, we begin to understand the true origin of our obsessions, questioning, where does this desire come from? What is it trying to fill in our lives? Analysis then serves as a bridge between understanding and transformation. It's the moment to make connections and observe how this desire may be out of harmony with the natural flow of life. Like a gardener carefully examining the soil before planting, we need to consider what we gain and what we lose with this attachment. Finally, action arises naturally from the clarity obtained. Instead of fighting against the obsession, we can channel that energy into activities that promote well-being, following the principle of Wu Wei, the non-action that flows with our essence. It's like transforming the force of a current into useful energy.
What an interesting analogy of the murky water, Lao-Tzu. Maharshi, how do you see this process of transforming an obsession into personal growth?
Rubian, transforming a mental obsession into personal growth is like learning to direct the light of a lantern. Instead of letting it scatter, we focus its energy in a constructive direction. First, through reflection, we dedicate time to understand the roots of this obsession. It's a moment of self-inquiry where we ask, why does this idea dominate my mind? Analysis allows us to distinguish between the real and the illusory. Like a scientist examining a sample under a microscope, we must carefully observe how this obsession impacts our emotional state and daily life. Our mind is like a mirror. By changing what we place before it, we transform the reflected image. Finally, action becomes the catalyst for change. Through practices like breath control and meditation, we can channel this obsessive energy into something constructive. It's like transforming barren land into a flourishing garden. It requires dedication, but the results are profoundly transformative.
Impressive how both masters show us that our obsessions, when well worked, can become fertile ground for our development. Let's move on to the next question. We have arrived at a deep reflection on our current society. Lao-Tzu, does our culture feed the fixation on other people as a form of escapism or a search for completeness?
Rubian, this is something very present in our contemporary society. Modern culture often leads us to believe that happiness and fulfillment depend on external connections, as if we were incomplete puzzle pieces seeking our perfect fit in other people. It's interesting to note how this search for completeness through others ends up becoming a sophisticated form of escapism. Instead of facing our internal voids, we project our expectations onto others, hoping they will fill these emotional gaps. The path of wisdom teaches us something different. Just as a vase is useful for its empty space, our capacity for self-sufficiency and inner development is what truly nourishes us. The true quest should be for internal harmony, where the connection with oneself is more powerful than any external relationship.
A keen observation about our society, Lao-Tzu. And you, Maharshi, how do you perceive this cultural tendency to see completeness through others?
Look, Rubian, our current society really cultivates a dangerous illusion. It's as if we are constantly chasing shadows, believing that our happiness is placed in the hands of other people. This reminds me of a child who believes their joy depends solely on a new toy. Once acquired, the satisfaction is momentary, and soon the need for another object of desire arises. Similarly, people seek completeness in relationships, status, or external recognition, ignoring that true fulfillment already resides within their own being. The key is to understand that we are the being by essence. When we connect to this fundamental truth, the fixation on others naturally dissolves, allowing for a more authentic experience of love and connection.
What a powerful reflection on how our modern society can divert us from the path of true inner completeness. Let's move forward. We have arrived at a question that makes us deeply reflect on our relationships. Lao-Tzu, what is more important? The person who occupies our thoughts, or what they represent to us in terms of desires, fears, and aspirations?
Rubian, this question reveals an interesting complexity of the human mind. I believe that, often, the importance lies not just in the person themselves, but in everything they symbolize in our hearts and minds. It's like a leafy tree. We can think of it as simply a being, but what truly makes it special are its roots and what it provides: shade, fruit, and shelter. When we become attached to someone, it is often because that person represents something we seek or fear. It could be the security we desire, the happiness we long for, or the validation we lack. Therefore, More than the person themselves, it is the emotional weight they carry that truly shapes our experience. By exploring these desires and fears, we are led down a path of growth and transformation. Letting go of the attachment to the idea of the person themselves and shifting our focus to what they evoke in us can bring greater freedom and a deeper connection with our own being.
A fascinating perspective, Lao-Tzu. Maharshi, how do you see this relationship between the real person and what they represent in our psyche?
Rubian, it is essential to recognize that the person in our thoughts is often a reflection of our own illusions and desires, not an independent entity. It's like a shadow theater where we project our own stories and expectations. When we fixate on someone, what we are really seeking is how that person connects with our aspirations and fears. Thus, it is not the person themselves who holds the importance, but rather the relationship we build around them, carrying our longings and insecurities. The true investigation should lead us to question, what do these feelings tell us about our search for validation or connection? By understanding this dynamic, we can free ourselves from the shackles of the ego, transcending identification with external forms. This awareness provides us with a clearer path to the realization of being.
Remarkable how both perspectives show us that often what attracts us to someone is more a reflection of ourselves than of the real person. This invites us to take a deeper look at our own needs and desires. I will process the next part of the debate on how to balance human connection and projections, maintaining continuity and avoiding repetitions from the previous history. Now we come to a crucial point in our relationships. Lao-Tzu, how can we balance our natural need for human connection with the risk of losing ourselves in projections and idealizations?
Rubian, this is a fundamental question for our journey of self-knowledge. Human connection is like a garden that needs to be cultivated wisely. If we water it too much with our expectations, the roots may rot. If we water it too little out of fear of getting hurt, the plants wither. The key lies in understanding that we can relate deeply without losing ourselves in the idealization of the other. It's like dancing. You need to maintain your own center of gravity while moving in harmony with your partner. When we practice this relational dance consciously, we allow the other to be authentic, free from the distortions of our projections. Contemplation helps us discern between genuine connections and idealizations. When we allow ourselves moments of reflection, we can see more clearly where our expectations end and where the true essence of the other begins. Thus, human connection becomes a sacred space for authentic meeting.
What a beautiful metaphor of dance, Lao-Tzu. And you, Maharshi, how do you see this delicate balance between connection and projection?
Notice, Rubian, that human connection is a fundamental part of our existence, but we often confuse it with our own mental creations. It's like looking through a window. We can see the real landscape or get stuck in the reflection of our own projections on the glass. Self-knowledge is essential in this process. When we dive into the investigation of the self, we begin to distinguish between authentic connections and idealizations. It's like learning to swim. First, we need to find our own balance in the water before we can swim alongside others. The practice of being present in the moment helps us see people as they truly are, free from the distortions of our expectations. When we inhabit the eternal now, projections naturally dissolve, allowing for a true meeting between beings.
Extraordinary how both of you show us that the balance between connection and projection starts with our own awareness and presence. True connection arises when we can see beyond our own expectations. We have reached a deep and transformative question. Lao-Tzu, is the journey to self-knowledge the key to healthier relationships or a solitary quest that distances us from others?
Rubian, this is a very interesting question. The journey to self-knowledge is, in essence, a dual path. On one hand, it invites us to dive into ourselves, to know our inner truths, and thus we find a space of clarity and peace. When we understand ourselves, we become more authentic in our interactions, like a serene lake that clearly reflects everything around it. On the other hand, this quest can seem solitary, especially if the individual dives completely into their inner world, disconnecting from the outside world. However, ultimately, true understanding of the self is not an end in itself. It is a tool that, once mastered, transforms the way we connect with others. The more we know ourselves, the more we can offer to relationships. The kindness, compassion, and understanding we cultivate within ourselves blossom into healthy interactions. Thus, rather than being a solitary quest, the journey to self-knowledge should be seen as a means to enrich relationships.
A very enlightening perspective, Lao-Tzu. And you, Maharshi, how do you see this apparent duality between self-knowledge and connection with others?
Rubian, the journey to self-knowledge is like cultivating an inner garden. When we begin to understand who we truly are, the flowers of our essence begin to bloom, and this naturally reflects in our relationships. Delving into self-knowledge allows us to dissipate the illusions we project onto others and ourselves. It is crucial to understand that this quest is not a solitary journey, but a self-discovery that paradoxically connects us more deeply to others. As we come to know ourselves, we become more empathetic, understanding, and able to love authentically. When we detach from the ego, we begin to perceive the interconnectedness of all beings. If we only take refuge in the dissolution of the ego, we may initially feel a distance, like a soloist playing a melody in an empty room. However, as we progress on the journey of self-knowledge, we notice that this melody can harmonize with others, creating a beautiful and complex symphony.
Incredible how both perspectives reveal that true self-knowledge, far from isolating us, ultimately brings us closer to others. Let's move on to the next question. Well, we have reached the end of this incredible episode, and what an extraordinary journey it has been. Through the wise words of our masters, we have delved deeply into understanding why some people seem to constantly occupy our thoughts. We saw that the line between obsession and true love is thin, and that often what we project onto the other says more about us than about the person. We learned that self-knowledge is the key to transforming fixations into personal growth. I want to immensely thank our masters for sharing this ancestral wisdom with us in such a profound yet accessible way. It has been an incredible honor to have you here, and I hope to welcome you again in future episodes for more transformative reflections. And you who are watching, you can check out 2 more amazing videos from our channel. The images are appearing on your screen now. Just click on one of them to continue this journey of self-knowledge with us. If you enjoyed this content and want to receive more reflections like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We always bring relevant topics that help us better understand ourselves and our relationships. Thank you for watching until now, and I wish you to be free from everything that takes away your peace.